Oh, look at these revenue stats. Chris, are you going to keep your secrets or are you going to tell us how you generated so much revenue at your gym?
I've got to let my secrets out, Mike.
Ooh.
Two Brain has been too good to me to not do this. They've really helped me along the way. And really, when it comes down to it, do the program. Two Brain has been very integral into this, to these numbers. And so I'm happy to share.
Okay, I can't wait. We're going to get right into that. Listeners, this is Two Brain Radio. Please hit like or subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. My name is Mike Warkington. I'm here with Christopher Thacker of the Lab Gym in St. Louis, Missouri. At Two Brain, we track all the numbers, all of them. And I'm thrilled to tell you that Chris landed on our June leaderboard, which ran from $48,000 to almost $80K. Wow, right? I know a little bit about Chris's business and I want him to share his secrets with you. He said he's going to do it. So we're going to dig right in now so you can generate big revenue too. Here we go. Chris, now I understand you've always been a PT facility and groups are the other thing. Now that's different than many gyms, including mine. Many of us focus on group training. PT is an afterthought. So how did you come to focus on this and generate so much revenue from it?
That's a good question, Mike. We have always been a PT facility, as you mentioned. My brother, Justin Thacker, RD, CSCS, health fitness specialist. He's got several letters behind his name, but he founded the lab for human performance and preventative health.
Ooh, I like that one.
Back in June of 2007, Justin, being an international level weightlifter with aspirations of making it to the big show, he needed to maintain his training, a paycheck, school, and pursue a career in our industry. So he said, let's roll the dice and open my own place. He was an undergrad at the time. He called his big brother up and said, hey, this is what I'm doing. And I said, you go sink your own ship, buddy.
As any big brother would say.
Absolutely. And so really the first year was a one-man show. He started hiring in. We grew to quite a few trainers. That gym was 2,000 square feet. The training floor was 1,000 square feet. The front end of it was there was a cardio room. There was a small lobby, an office, one-seater toilet. Pretty sure only men used it. The women stayed away from it.
Probably.
But the gym floor itself, we had 5 platforms, and by the second year, we were running. We were booked out on all 5 platforms with several trainers and clients before and after work during our peak times.
This is all PT.
Yeah, all PT. We ran. Justin being an RD, nutrition counseling was obviously very much integrated into everybody's plan. And then we ran some massage therapy as a perk, enough hours for a part-time gig. I think it was mostly used by staff. But we kind of dabbled in supplements and this and that. But really, at the end of the day, it was all about training.
Now, do you recall I got to jump in on this. Like, do you recall your rates from back in the day then when in that era where you were doing PT and some, a little bit of supplements and some other stuff in there? Like what do you, maybe you didn't track ARM, but do you have an idea of what you were charging a client on average per month?
Yeah, I want to say that we were probably in the ballpark of $50 a session.
Okay.
And everything at that point in time we had 2 programs. It was 6 days a week or 3 days a week.
Okay, so simple offering, but effective.
Yes. And so do the math on that. It runs up pretty quick. When I was, in preparation for this meeting, I looked at some old numbers and we were hovering around $17,000, $18,000 a month.
Okay.
And to look back on that today, it's good to see the growth. I've seen every aspect of this industry. We peaked out back in around 2015 with a 28,000 square foot facility running $100,000 a month revenue. But we were also running $110,000 a month in expenses,
Okay.
Yeah. So the ever growing cash eating monster was nipping at her heels daily.
Did you go from 2,000 to 28,000 square feet?
So we scaled up. We moved from 2000 into 7,500.
Still big, yeah.
Yeah, and that step was kind of scary. We looked at each other and said, "Okay, we've got this big room. Now we have to fill it."
Yeah, I've been
And
there.
so yeah, we had some very good clients that Justin actually trained prior to the lab being more than an idea, and so they've been with us throughout. But when going into that 7,500 square foot space, we had started, we picked up a boot camp from a local guy. He was a military guy, moved to Colorado and had a pretty good following. So we had maximized our one-on-one PT space. So picking up this boot camp was beneficial. It was a new animal for us. Now, we grew up in sports. Strength sports have been a big part of our lives since we were kids. But then, more organized team sports stuff too. So group training kind of came naturally to us. When we're running group programs, it reminds me of being in the weight room in high school and college, So picking up the boot camp, it was their quintessential boot camp. Tom being a military guy, it was a lot of body weight stuff, a lot of carry your buddy, and a lot of long enduring steady state cardio runs. So when we brought them in, us knowing how beneficial strength training is, and that being our go-to, we won that group over pretty quickly. They were pretty tight-knit group. They would hold, oh God, they would hold a holiday party every year. It was a boot camp Christmas party. It was a great deal. They would be involved in each other's weddings, and they're a big part of our community still today. But bringing them on board into a space of 2,000 square feet in a already maxed out space,
No
we
good.
we were actually we bought a couple of big tarp canopies from Sam's that were 10 by 60. And created an outdoor space. And
I love it.
those diehards would do that. I mean, they didn't miss a day. We would only take it inside if it got below 20 degrees. It was
You signed up for a boot camp, you're gonna get a boot camp.
That's right. But by interjecting some dumbbells, some compound movements, and a linear progression, they thought that we had just given them the golden egg, basically. They were really, really turned on by it. And so that gave us enough traction to, okay, let's roll the dice. Let's get into a bigger space. And that first year there was a little rough, as any growth move is. And so to compensate for that, we tried everything from membership sales to bringing on Les Mills Group Fitness to free PT, free memberships, for Christ's sake. And then Groupon kicked in. Okay. Excuse me. Groupon was we cycled a lot of people through our facility, and our deal was a month membership with 3 training sessions. And at one point my front desk was not so thrilled with all the tire kickers they were coming through. But I ran some numbers at that point to kind of prove how valuable it was at the end of the day, which Groupon turned us over a lot of PT clients. And so while personal training was very strong and running really well, all of the other noise that we created for ourselves was very distracting and caused more problems than we needed. And so wasn't too long after that, word started getting around town that we were weightlifting coaches, and this was probably So we moved into the second space around 2009, 10. We started a small weightlifting group in 2008 before we left our first building. That comprised of about 5 or 6 people, but it didn't take long. CrossFit being a growing element, and how important weightlifting is to the workouts, but sport itself. The area coaches and other CrossFit athletes were, or CrossFit health minded individuals, found out what we were doing, and they started coming to us for more weightlifting coaching, things like that, which then turned into coaching seminars. And we have a pretty wide net in our area. Our community, from gym to gym, we're pretty in touch with one another, but a lot of that goes back to those days when we were all training together in the same room. But then that kind of opened up the door to affiliating. CrossFit was prime for the picking.
Sure.
So we moved into that space of 7,500. By a year into that, we took on another 7,000 square feet or so of that space, which was essentially a big open room, no AC, no heat, just a concrete room that we can weightlift in. And so my boot camp crew, who are most lovingly known as our grass kickers, they were our test dummies for our CrossFit programming. And when we introduced that to them, it was a whole new thing for them. I mean, essentially another golden egg. They loved it, took to it very well. There were a couple naysayers at first, but they're tried and true CrossFitters today. So the group fitness element, and I shouldn't say group fitness, group coaching element came on in a time where we were unsure of it but needed it. And since then, I've dumped all of the other nonsense, and have really rooted back into what we're good in, and that's our one-on-one training. We've expanded on that with our group training model, which is essentially, it's personal training. It's just done in a group of 10 to 12.
Okay.
Right. And so very early on with being a CrossFit affiliate, we said we should be doing this with our own format, with our own program, going back to the first offerings of 6 days a week of training. That's exactly what we needed to be doing. And so, a classic training approach, barbell centric, squat, bench, deadlift, overhead press, accessory work, and then cardio conditioning, HIIT style.
You had me until you said cardio, but other than that, it sounded great.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And so that kind of that format has been our principal or first offering since 2007, and still to this day is my recommendation to anybody walking in the door.
Okay, so let me summarize this and see if I got this right. So you start out PT, and then you start adding in a little bit of boot camp style stuff, and you start expanding. Then you start getting into like, how do I pay for the space? Adding in Groupon, starting to lose your focus a little bit, as you said. When you got that big space, like, what was the profitability of the business like throughout this? Like, when did you get to the point where you had like $100,000 of revenue, but expenses that matched or were bigger than that?
We scaled pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
In that era, Coop talks about it a lot. The 2008 hit that we had.
Yeah.
I remember many times being able to say, we're growing in a recession. There are a lot of factors in this, CrossFit becoming a thing. We're seeing some of the baby boomers are wanting to, live forever. And so they're coming in and wanting to get into training, but to $100,000 a month, I'd say by 2011, 12,
Okay,
we were
that's
getting
cool.
pretty close.
Yeah.
and definitely, from 12 to 17, we were north of that.
Okay. What was was the big expense rent and salary? Was that what
Oh,
caused you to
absolutely.
get, so that's what caused
100%.
you to get in a bit of a trouble there?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I'm in an area in St. Louis. It's considered Midtown.
Okay.
And it encompasses several neighborhoods. But it is, it's the heart of St. Louis. The interstates are running right through these neighborhoods. It is where high-end housing is, or housing, apartments, leases, ownership, etc. The hospitals are right next to us. So I'm in a high rent district.
Okay.
With a warehouse space, for that matter, it only gets more expensive the bigger you get, right?
Yeah. So six-figure revenue, and you're talking like early on, like when I was, when I opened my gym, it was in like 2010, 11, something like that. And we were like, I was trying to get to 5 figures. So you're cranking out 6, your expenses skyrocket up. And Chris has talked about this, where expansion often comes with a dip in profitability. And because, everything adds up fast, you got to figure things out. You got to be a better business owner. So how did you unscrew everything? How did you get to a point where then, you get revenue above expenses? How do you do it?
We had to make some hard decisions and started to scale back.
What'd you scale back on?
Everything. So we were in the building we were in was an albatross. By our third move, it was 28,000 square feet.
Huge.
It was great space, had a lot of character, but there was, like, for example, there was an atrium that ran through the middle of the building. Great meeting place, lots of natural light in there. There was freaking palm trees, for Christ's sake.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in St. Louis.
Oh my God.
But the glass in that atrium was a sheet of plexiglass. So when the summer hit, my electric bill was $8,000 a month. When winter hit, my gas bill was $5,000-6,000 a month. So it would take me until October, November to catch up with my summer months of bills. To then turn around to get the winter utility bills, and so we had to learn the hard way that we just did not have big corporate to support, the stuff we were trying to do. And again, lots of ways is a way to put it. We were distracted from what we were really good at, and that goes back to our training and coaching.
Okay. Did you have a long-term lease, or did you have to break it, or did you wait it out, or what'd you do?
So the landlord was interested in moving or in selling, and we were not. And we were looking at trying to get out of there anyway. And so we came to agreement to break the lease. And before we had ability to plan an appropriate move, he's got a buyer on the hook. And so that kind of expedited our exit a little bit. And then my world imploded. My brother passed away that year. And that was 2019. And then
that's when you were exiting this facility?
Yes.
So at the same time when your brother passes?
Yes.
Oh,
so
geez.
we had, he and I had been working on the facility I'm in now. We started speaking with the landlord over here. Had lots of discussions, lots of meetings, started working on floor plan and our move to exit. Excuse me. He passed away, and in the end of August of 19, I didn't talk to anybody for a couple weeks. When I resurfaced, landlords trying to get a hold of me. Hey, we're closing October 10th. I need things to be moving.
Oh boy.
So I said, man, it's September 15th. I've got, 30,000 equipment. Well, 27, but either way, not going to happen. Well, he worked with me. We got out of there, had a lot of support from clients and staff and family. And, our community, what's really unique about small business and gym community, et cetera. I mean, when there's crisis, everybody's there, and so I got out of there quickly. Did a short-term deal with a friend of mine who owns a gym locally. We trained our clients there for about 6 weeks. Tight space, but they were and they had a full book of clientele as well. But they're amazing guys and wouldn't be here without them today. They really, I sat down with them and they said, Chris, whatever it's going to take to help you get to the next step.
Wow.
So
So at one point, did your gym crack $1 million of revenue?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So that's incredible, but profitability was not there.
No. I mean, we were feeding ourselves. We were, the last ones on the list. You know how that goes.
Yeah. So this is fascinating because we often talk about gym owners. We say gross revenue is not all it's cracked up to.
Yeah.
It's great, but it can't, if your expenses match it or exceed it, gross revenue means nothing. And there have been stories, and Chris has talked about this. There have been stories of gym owners who are, $1 million gyms, things like that. The revenue is exceeded by the expenses, and there's some suffering going on for, for their families and staff and so forth. And so you were that guy.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And, the other part of that pie was payroll. We are a W-2, and so that compounds pretty quick. And when we're running a place that's got 10 trainers on the floor at one time, strength coaches, and then group fitness, and then support staff, I had 30 people on staff at one point.
Wow. And I can see how that pressure to feed those people, feed yourself, cover your expenses. I can see how that would cause you to lose focus, because all of a sudden you start thinking, I need to do all the things. I need to find some revenue. I need to group on this. I need to find more clients, marketing, hamster wheel, the whole thing. And it just, that spiral, right?
Yeah.
Let's get into the good stuff now. So I'm curious to see about this. So 2019, you have a tough deal. Everything's kind of crappy. What happens then? You move into, I'm guessing, a smaller space, and what do you start doing? Take me through that period.
So, landed in a warehouse space. It, and was not very far from where we were. Okay. The neighborhood that I'm in, really turning around. Lots of new restaurants and nightlife moving in. Lots of residential stuff. So moved into this neighborhood. The building I'm in is a monster. It's a 130,000 square foot warehouse space. The landlord said, hey, I've got temporary space if you need it. We moved into there. Was only supposed to be, 30, 60 days, and try to iron out details for the space I'm in. Well, then by day 90, I'm pretty comfortable in this space. I can make it work, but it needs a coat of paint and a lot of work. It was straight up just a warehouse. Then we started negotiating to get me back in the space we originally talked about, which is where I'm at now, which is, in hindsight, much rather be where we're at. There's, lots of natural light. It's a great room. This was around about January, February of 2020.
I know what's coming there. I know what you're going to talk about right away.
Yeah. And so stay-at-home orders started going into place mid-March.
How big is the space, before you go further? How big is the space that you were in at that point?
Okay. So I went from, like I said, 27. I'm in 12, almost 13,000 square feet now.
Still big, but less than half a year. So you're cutting your costs there, which is nice.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. And so the square foot rate didn't help me out much, but the gross run up of the area, or the space itself, is big help. So with trying to move, being transplanted in a couple places, not having an ideal space. My previous space, everybody was used to having air conditioning, locker room, showers, some niceties, so to speak.
They got soft. Oh, they got soft.
Yeah. We took some hardcore people and made them soft, and then But our core group's still with us. The pandemic hit and stay-at-home orders went into place. We were limited down to something like 10 people in the room on an hour, something crazy.
Which makes no sense when you've got a giant space, right?
Oh, absolutely. And one of my staff said, if they shut us down, how long do you think we'll make it? I said, 2 weeks. We're on a bi-monthly draw.
Yep.
I said, if there's no revenue coming in, and we can't provide services, we're dead in the water.
Yep.
Fortunately, incredible staff, incredible community. My clients, they huddled around us again. We pivoted, did a lot of virtual stuff, and there was quite a few members that were, and at the time I was still doing open gym access. A lot of those people said, keep my membership running. I want to make sure you make it to the other side. I even had a few people charge me double, they said.
Wow.
So, yeah,
you got some good clients.
Yeah. And fast forward 3 months, I had already signed the contract to move into this new space. And the city was releasing us back into the wild and allowing people to start going to public places. I was able to get us moved, do some renovation, paint, make it a nice space inside of that 3-month break. It was tooth and nail to get opened up inside of 3 months though too. And then that 2020 was just kind of everybody's deal. It was rough. But then from there, Two Brain has been very, very much a part of my growth in that process. So I signed up in 2020 October, and it really helped me focus on where I needed to be putting my attention and time.
So why'd you sign up?
Well, I stumbled across Cooper through Profit First and Mike McAllowitz.
Oh, cool. Right on.
Yeah, that ecosystem just made a lot of sense to me.
Especially given your history, because you said you guys were eating last.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And truth be told, I found Profit First part of 2019, and I was reading the book, and I said to my brother, Justin, you got to read this book, man. This guy's incredible. The stuff that he's putting out there is it's going to change our lives. And I didn't get halfway through the book, and I had to put it down because of life, and then everything else that blew up on me. I picked it back up first part of 2020. John Briggs sent out his rendition of it.
Profit First for micro gyms. Yep.
Yeah, and that anchored me in. Signed up with them as my accountants.
Very cool.
Have been running that program since.
Okay, so that's interesting. And then through all that, you get hooked into Chris and Two Brain Business.
Correct.
Okay.
All of the content that Cooper's sending out, I'm like, who is this guy? This guy's crazy. He's giving it all away for free. Coming from a mindset of everything we do is proprietary, and we're strength training, but nobody else is going to do it as good as we can. And it's, we're not reinventing the wheel, of course, but we have a refined method, and nobody's going to copy that, And so when Cooper's sending out all these things, I was just blown away. And he follows the mindset of follow up till they're dead, which is, that's a marketing tactic that we've always tried to employ. But that, tapping into that resource, it was just checking off a lot of the right boxes at a time when I was, my sounding board was smaller. My partner in crime had been silenced, so to speak, and so it came at the right time where I was needing to kind of quiet the noise and focus a little more. And I was first assigned to Dan Visinten, who's no longer with Two Brain, but Dan was incredible guy to work with. He's since left, but now I'm with Russell Francis, and I
Russell is
mean,
good. He's a good guy.
yeah, it could not have been a better match. He and I mean, here, I look forward to our conversations just for the dopamine I get from the meeting. I mean, it's just always a good progressive conversation. There's a lot of things that I need to be covering, a lot of things I need to be working on, and he helps me kind of silence the noise and get directed into what's going to make the biggest impact.
Now, I'm just going to give you, Chris, this is going to be an edit point for us. Whatever reason, Zoom has changed some setting on me, and I'm getting a countdown timer that says the meeting is going to end in 5 minutes. Okay. So what's going to happen is when we get close to that, I'm just going to, either jump in or whatever, and we're just going to reconnect this. So you might have to disconnect and come back in.
Totally fine.
Again, I have no idea why this has changed. I'm going to yell at Zoom support after this meeting, but so we got about 5 minutes before that happens. So I'll just start in, and then at some point I'll interject, and then we'll reconnect. So you'll just have to jump back in if that's cool.
Yeah. Here, and given my ums and ahs, edit down where needed.
All good, my friend. Okay, so let's talk. Let's talk about the Two Brain stuff. And so you had this long-standing, well-established business that got to $1 million in revenue, had some profitability issues. You had a gigantic, beautiful space. You had some moves. You had a tragedy in the family of all this stuff. You start working with Two Brain. What happens then? Like, because you're a long-standing gym, how does Two Brain help you make things work better?
So good question. It helped me put our process into a structured format that really, the client journey is kind of the root to that answer.
Okay, I'm fired up about this already. Did you have one before that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Loosely.
Okay, loosely. I gotcha.
Yeah. So, I mean, the process has always been from day one, get them on a consultation, however they make it in the door. That consultation is, we go through health history, we talk about our programming, their goals, how this all comes together, of course. The next step is get them on the training floor, and the training experience hooks them in. If I can get them onto the floor, it's a close. And so there's always the budget conversation, things like that. Always had the mindset of an offer A and an offer B. I want to see them working in our 6-day-a-week program. If that's not in their budget, I have something that's going to wow them just the same. And something that my brother and I always said to each other is, you get what you pay for. Everybody wants the Ferrari, but not everybody can afford that. So just making sure our services were ironclad. But there's drop points in that. And so by incorporating a longer onboarding period, that's really helped me. It's really helped with traction and that client sticking. Prior to, it was 3 free training sessions with a membership. It was basically giving us all away for free. Come in, try it out. It was an expense we were willing to take on because we were so confident in our services. However, there was a lot of time spent on the 60% or so that didn't stick. I mean, we burned a lot of leads over time. And so we tried to pre-qualify as much as we could. The reality of it is we were running, I mean, everybody in the door had a deal. There was no standard in margin. Well, I established a margin for us that was good. It was definitely not the 4 nights model, but it was good. It helped us, through our growth patterns. But at the end of the day, we were still there was really not much room for profit.
So you've got some structures. Obviously, you have some stuff, but it's not super solid in the sense that you've got some discounts, you got some deals, you have an idea of the client journey, but you're not quite have it dialed in. So what does the Two Brain team do to that client journey and to your systems and procedures to take you into like significant profitability?
So first step was no more deals.
That's a big
Yeah.
one, right? You probably saw
Yeah.
a huge bump in profitability right there, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, get what you're worth.
Mhm.
It was the real take home message. And reverse engineering everything, which, listen, I've got a finance degree, accounting degree,
Oh, you do,
you know,
hey?
banking. Yeah. And that area of my life has always been uh, key in business, of course, right? But when you are passionate about your business, that's your baby. It's going to live regardless. You're going to die on your own sword, right?
Yeah.
And
Tough to put a
so,
budget on your daughter's birthday party, you know?
correct,
Yeah.
exactly. And so, restructuring the price points, doing a rate increase campaign was pretty early on. The and again, we're in a higher rent district. Our price points are probably a little higher than some. But when you get into the prescriptive model, coaching centric, client centric method or model, you can't be ashamed to ask for what you're worth. Because at the end of the day, if you're not feeding yourself, you're not going to last, and your clients don't want you to see. They don't want to see you go by the wayside. So that was a big pill to swallow for me at first. The one thing that Dan would always say to me: quit casting your budget on your clients.
It's a
Uh,
big one. I did it too.
yeah, and I still struggle with that, honestly.
Yeah.
But then the next step in that is my onboarding process. The going into a longer term, really helping ensure their traction, their success. And so longer onboarding, we went from, the 3 free sessions, and actually we would extend that to 2 weeks. We turned that into a 6 week program with the onset of group being a big focus or a bigger focus of the operation. When trying to determine price points, your the setting your average revenue per member and then working backwards.
Uh-huh.
And so essentially selling on the front end, okay, this is where you need this person to be at. Okay, so that's what your offerings are. Don't go below it. And so I still have a lot of people that go back to 2007 that are with me that we're working on getting them there. But that between the rate change and that longer onboarding has really correlated to greater retention. And then with that onboarding, the goal review process has been a game changer.
Okay,
That
I'm going to stop you there for a second because we're going to hit this one hard. And I'm just going to recap for our listeners. You get rid of discounts. That is a huge deal right off the top. So all of a sudden, because we had that same issue, you got people at different rates, everything's a little bit weird, and you're still moving some people up from those old school rates. That's totally cool because there's a plan. Two Brain has a plan to do that. And you might not just bring them all the way up, but you eliminate discounts. You do a rate increase, which the rate increase formula Two Brain has, it's designed to help gym owners make what they need to make. And there is a stepwise progression if something needs to go up significantly. Then you've got this onboarding process. And every single time I talk to a successful gym owner, the onboarding process, the longer it is and more intense that it is, the better things are for the gym and it's better for the client because the client they stay in the business, they get acclimated, they learn things, they get everything they need for long-term success. So those three huge things are just a monster deal right off the bat that are going to increase average revenue per member, length of engagement, revenue, all the key metrics that you need to drive up. And now we've got goal reviews. So tell me about this, because this is once a client's in the door, we have a tendency as gym owners to be like, oh God, I sold the client. I got the commitment. Everything's great. And we're just going to assume that client will stay forever. And it doesn't happen. Goal reviews change things. So Chris, tell me about goal reviews and what they did for your business. I got a little internet lag
And
here.
give you what that looked like prior to. It
Mm-hmm.
would basically, we did a lot of packages. Okay. We did not, we adapted to monthly draws, probably around 2017 ish or so. But God, I could say 45% of revenue was still coming from large packages. So moving that forward,
So that'd
at
be
that time,
unpredictable, right? That could be
unpredictable,
unpredictable.
number
Yeah.
one. But the time, I would only have a touch with that client when it was renewal time.
And then you got to sell again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And there was never, body composition assessments were part of our program. That would go from caliper readings and circumference measurements to in body periodically. It was never a consistent or static routine with that. And so when it came time to renew somebody, it was, you're going to make it this time, you're going to come in on time, you're going to pay us, I'll cut you this amazing deal on this really long-term program, and a lot of paid in fulls and silly stuff like that.
Okay.
By incorporating the goal review process, I was instructed and very, this is through ramp up, to start with seed clients, and doing the due diligence through those interviews. Immediately struck a fire with my seed clients. They're posting on social media. You want to go to a gym that really cares about your progress, this is where you need to go.
And seed clients, listeners, seed clients are your very best clients that pay you the most money, bring you the most joy, and you want to listen to what they have to say. Keep going, Chris.
And so that, at first I was a little uncomfortable with it. Anything new, right? But I had clicked off a few meetings with my innermost circle, and they went really, really well. And so that just fanned the flame, and really stoked that fire to where I was starting to get progress into all of the new client onboarding. And so through my 6-week onboarding, I do at 2 weeks in, we do a quick touch point. At the end of that, we do a post assessment, another prescription or goal review, essentially. And then maintaining that at the very least quarterly. I mean, I'm in touch with the clients more so than I ever have. And there's clients
there's a
that
secret right there.
Yeah, and it also, we have our avatars for client types, right? But it goes deeper than that when you start factoring in personality type, and there's of course the physical progress everybody makes, but then there's the mental side of it too. And kind of getting to understand that client a little better kind of helps me pull the right levers, so to speak. And I'm not trying to play anybody, but it helps me understand them greater to find the motivating factor to help them get to their goal. I've got an incredible staff. These guys, I wouldn't be here without them. They've really helped me cultivate our culture. But the client interaction and getting to know our clientele through the goal review process has increased our length of engagement. It's helped increase our community aspect, or everybody's tied together. There are so many relationships built in our community, but that's a whole nother tangent. The point being, though, with the goal review process, it helps me to trouble spot or troubleshoot if there's drop-off points. That regular routine of getting with somebody. If I'm going to go to a professional for something, if I give them my money and I have no other interaction beyond that, they're not going to get my money much longer.
And that's a paid in full, right? That's like
correct.
the equivalent of a paid in full contract at a gym.
That's correct. And so when somebody is truly vested in my progress, or when we clearly show that we're vested in their progress, that has solidified length of engagement. It helps us increase our arm. it's a win-win, and it's so simple, but uh, everybody should be doing it. It's just we have to get over some hurdles. It's all our own bullshit, really.
Mhm.
But the value that I have found in it, uh, again, goes back to keeping me connected with clientele, and it's yeah, I can't say enough positive things about it.
So what you basically listed for me is you followed the playbook that we give you in the ramp up program, which is the introductory program that Two Brain has. After that, people go to the growth stage where it's more targeted, but the ramp up program is designed to bring gym owners up to speed. And there are a lot of elements that you mentioned there. A lot of the stuff that's in there is like fundamental stuff that people haven't done, either new gym owners or old school guys like us haven't done. And so we're talking like getting the rates correct, getting a clear avatar. Who are we selling to? Getting a clear client journey in place, figuring out in that client journey, where are we screwing up? Where are people leaving and why are they leaving? Then plugging those holes, which means retention is better, using a prescriptive model, which is then asking clients about their goals and telling them, this is what you need. Here's what it costs. Okay. Here's what the other program costs, whatever. And you're selling that way. So you're telling them what they need. Then in that, you have built in a long-term onboarding process. And then onto that, you have regular touch points, with the peak of those being the goal review sessions every quarter at least, where you talk to your clients, find out if they're having progress. If they're having the great progress, you celebrate them. If they're not, you adjust the prescription so they make better progress, which is a huge retention tool. And all of a sudden, a lot of the major holes in the business are plugged. So I'll ask you this: when you got through this stuff, what happened to your financial stuff? Because you made a revenue leaderboard. Did your profitability go up? Like, what happened with at this point?
Oh, absolutely. And as I relayed to Eden, who first reached out to me about
Yeah.
making leaderboard, I said, she asked, do you expect this to continue, or is this a blip on the radar, basically? And I told her, I said, I'm not much for counting my money at the poker table. I get a little superstitious about that, but things are trending. Last month was actually uh, quite, our revenue was higher. But
So the month
there,
before you made the leaderboard, your revenue is actually higher.
yeah,
Okay, cool.
couple paid in fulls in there with some old clients that I just could not
Still
get to
counts.
turn. Yeah, but exactly. And so, but as this month's tracking, as I'm looking at future monthly draws, we're anchored into a pretty sustainable pace.
Nice.
Um, and so that's got me to, I have a paycheck.
Congrats.
I can take time away from work. The I mentioned my son earlier. My wife, we try to not be at the gym as much as we always are. And so what I once thought the potential of $100,000 a year take home was a laughable point. It's a foreseeable future for me, and beyond, honestly.
And that's
Yeah,
super cool because, not sorry to interrupt, but I got to point it out. It's like you had this $1 million revenue and now you're looking, I'm guessing that you're going to make more money personally with a gym that maybe is smaller, quote unquote, but is much tighter and much better run. Is that accurate?
that's 100% accurate.
Yeah. How cool is that? Right. Like, and it's
It's
amazing.
it's so eye-opening. The you know uh the the old school frame of mind, or mindset of, bigger is better, and grow. We will eventually make what we need to, if our revenue is 2 million or whatever the hell it is.
It's a lot of revenue,
Yeah, right. I
a
mean,
lot of
we were
clients.
chasing that. But just like Cooper talks about very early on, you're not going to have too much bandwidth for too many people outside 150. So that requires, for every additional person, there's, you can break it down into how much more cost that's going to
Yeah.
generate for you.
And
And
you've been
so,
there with the giant 27,000 square foot place. Those costs, they eat you alive if you're not
oh yeah,
running a tight operation.
yeah. And and I did some changes with our program too. So gym memberships forever. I don't offer an open gym access anymore unless it's a trained client.
Oh, you high fives.
It's been a hard pill to swallow because
Yeah,
we've always had our toe in the water when it comes to strength sports. So we are there's a barbell gym aspect to what we're doing.
sure.
And there are still some that come in on the open gym that have been grandfathered in. But they're still part of our programming.
Mhm.
They're not necessarily getting coached, but they're still on our service list.
Sure.
But quieting the noise, refocusing attention, and getting the right mindset of average revenue per member, length of engagement, and really and also not getting too as my grandmother would put it, not getting too high in the head over expenses. Really understanding what's my return on investment with different services that we have, things like that.
So was it eye-opening? I mean, I'm going back. You old school gym owner, you hit the $1 million revenue mark. Was it really eye-opening to see some of these simple systems and how they could transform your business just by going through the fundamental stuff in Randpub? Was that eye-opening for you?
Oh my God, I would trade it for my college degree any day.
Oh, seriously.
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
Wow.
the value in what I've taken from the Two Brain program, my mentorship, these guys have been paramount in basically the rest of my life. Honestly, I'm 45 this year. When I turned 40, I told myself the next 10 years is kind of the rest of your life, because that's going to set you up for what is next for, do I get to retire early, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I hit a huge reset button a couple years back. Um, I'm, I'm breathing, my head's above water, and there is definitely a horizon that I'm working towards, it, yeah, seeing that money turn through the accounts is great, but when you can't partake in it, or even worse, you're constantly chasing your tail trying to fill that void, is, I mean, you want to talk about stress. Um, my mother has always given me a lot of props for handling stress the way I do. I said, Mom, today this shit ain't nothing. Operating the way I used to, that's a little bit different, but and again, um, you know, everybody that is listening to this podcast, anybody that's involved in the Two Brain Network, have been down the path of wearing every hat in the gym, or every hat in the business, trying to make a mark in their life, and really, ultimately, I think all of us want to retirement. And so if I were to find a guy that's new on the street or wants to open a gym, and I've done it, I've got a buddy who's in Wisconsin, he's asking me questions about it. Tell you what, go do everything that Two Brain tells you, and you will be profitable by the end of the year, on year one. And there's lots of testimonial to that, but it's, I don't know, I can't say enough good things, Mike.
I appreciate that. I'm super happy because that you found success, because it was a thing where no one it was like gymnastics. No one like retired from gymnastics. You got injured and you were done. Whereas with gym owners, it's like no one retired as a gym owner. You just got sick of it and burned out and you left. And that's a tragedy for healthcare. It's a tragedy for clients and everything. The thing that I really want to bring forward is here, you made the revenue leaderboard, but I'm going to guess that all your other metrics went up at the same time. We're talking ARM, length of engagement, average revenue per member, all the other profitability, all the other stuff. And I'm thrilled to see that, because I never like to ask people revenue, because if I had asked you what revenue in 2012, you'd been like, yeah, I got $1 million gym. And I'm like, holy crap. But it was a struggle for you, and you're much happier and much more chilled out and less stressed now. So I love that you've got revenue tied to all the systems and structures that make sure that you get home to hang out with your kid.
Yeah. And that, everybody's read all of the quotes and all the self-help, and there's the list is very long, But your family comes first, your health comes first. The one of the first things that caught my attention from McAllowitz was eat the sandwich. The pilot must survive. That hooked me in. I mean, within the first paragraph of that book, and so that's kind of been my mindset ever since. Here I work. I'm here at the gym more than I should be. We're as business owners, this is our baby, but there's other things in life, and until you implement systems, and here I've been, we're here because of Two Brain. Yeah. They have been integral to our success. At the same time, and I say success, quote unquote, but I still have a lot to work on. But instilling programs or putting systems in place, Two Brain's a great option for people, but until somebody can systemize their approach and put things in place, they're going to be chasing their tail like I was. It's the greatest educations in life don't pay forward until you actually put them into practice.
Mm-hmm. It's Chris has that, he has talked about this. Knowledge doesn't mean anything. It's action that does it, because even all the knowledge in the world, it doesn't matter unless you actually take action. I'm going to let you eat the sandwich, Chris. I know we're creeping up on just after noon here. I want to thank you so much for sharing your time. I hope this inspires some other gym owners. So thank you so much, Chris, for being so upfront about your journey.
No problem, Mike. And when I got the notification on this, I was, of course, honored. But my second thought was, I am by far done. You'll see me on the leaderboard again, that's for sure.
I can't wait. That was top 10 revenue leader Christopher Thacker on Two Brain Radio. Thanks for listening to the show. Please hit subscribe on the way out wherever you're watching or listening.